Welcome back to BNC Live, everyone. We want to continue our conversation about the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. I'm joined now by Wes Bryant. He retired from the Air Force after 20 years of active duty service. He was deployed as part of special task forces in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan to fight ISIS. And Wes is also the co-author of the book Hunting the Caliphate, America's War on ISIS and the Dawn of the Strike Cell. Welcome to BNC Live, Wes. Good to have you. ISIS, we haven't heard that word in a while. Now we're hearing about ISIS-K. Tell us about your thoughts on what you're seeing unfold today. Is this the work of ISIS-K? How dangerous is the situation for America as a whole?
Yes, well, we'll wait to see how it pans out regarding the intel on ISIS-K. I mean, I'm suspecting the initial intel is correct. And we heard that initially anyway, that those were the threats. ISIS-K has been operating in Afghanistan since around 2015-16. They were heavy in fighting against both the U.S. and the Taliban in 2017 when I was last there in Afghanistan at the Special Operations Task Force. So, you know, I have two reactions. And my first reaction's that of a prior, special operations and conventional ground pounder warfighter, and that's we need to go kinetic against ISIS, who've maintained a continued presence throughout the peace agreements and negotiations with the Taliban. We've known that, and force the Taliban to live up to their side of the agreement of preventing any group, themselves or any other group, from threatening the security of the U.S. or our allies from Afghan soil. That just occurred today. So, my initial gut reaction of we need to go kinetic, that comes from my background. I acknowledge that may not be the actual
kinetic
best course of action.
Explain
kinetic.
I just want you to.
Kinetic is, initiating combat operations and specifically airstrike campaign against strategic targets that ISIS still holds within Afghanistan, that if we don't still have, we can find very quickly. Now,
but let's face it, we're fighting people. We're fighting people who are suicide bombers. How do you even deal with that? Yes. Which is why the threat of ISIS has been around for so long. As we saw from today's attack, they are willing to die to make their message heard. How do you even go about that without putting so many American lives and Afghanistan and whoever else lives at risk with people who are willing to die?
Exactly, and that's how ISIS was so successful, as well as the Taliban, but ISIS even more so by conducting these targeted and very well practiced and rehearsed and trained guerrilla tactics against the forces that they call their enemies, in this case, the U.S. And so you're exactly right. A strategic campaign against some ISIS targets throughout Afghanistan, it would be retribution, it would be distraction, and the main operation would be at the airport, actually securing that airport with preferably more manning and weaponry on the part of the U.S. and more drones on the perimeter airspace, as well as attack aviation assets and other reconnaissance assets in the area. What we should have done is with the Taliban, if we're making them live up to their side of this agreement, is force them to do exactly what we did with the Afghan forces on most every outpost and forward base in Afghanistan throughout the war, and that's create cordons for us to where the Taliban would be on the outer cordon perimeter, and no one would come inside that perimeter to the U.S. cordon until they were cleared. Now,
Wes,
granted, this situation is so difficult to do that, especially in a heavy urban environment and with the chaos of the crowds.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying sounds good on paper, I guess. But Wes, I want you to stand by for us. Stick around. We do want to get more perspective, but I want to bring in now to the conversation about what's happening in Afghanistan and also on voting rights, Congressman Jim Clyburn. We want to welcome him in now to BNC. Thank you so much. I see you are there up with us. Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to get your perspective on what's happening right now in Afghanistan, Congressman.
Well, as you know, I am very seldom a spokesperson.
And we want to go back now to our conversation about Afghanistan and welcome back in our guest, Wes Bryant, retired from the Air Force after 20 years of active duty service. Thank you so much, Wes, for sticking with us. I want to just finish off our conversation about Afghanistan. And really the bottom line is, do we send Americans back into that region? We've been there. People have been trying to end this endless war here. We're seeing this crisis unfolding today, right now, with ISIS-K, 12 American service members losing their lives. Do we really want to send Americans back to that region?
Right, that's a great question. And I think, I was pointing to earlier a visceral reaction that a lot of people like me and a lot of Americans will have. And really, we need to look at first that we are in this horrible situation, this evacuation, this non-combatant evacuation operation under extremely low security circumstances. And so that's what we need to focus on. We can't change that and suddenly become the U.S. occupying 9 airfields in Afghanistan again, like we did not too long ago. So do that first, which may involve more troops on the ground immediately, some more to hold the airfield effectively. I think more drone coverage and more aviation assets around the perimeter of the airfield as well need to take place, along with forcing the Taliban and whatever other forces are on the ground that are helping to push out an outer cordon of security, as well as holding them to their word of going after the perpetrators of this attack. Following that, any combat operations against these perpetrators, against specifically likely ISIS-K here, we can think about that later, really. We need to prevent a loss of life, U.S. life. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Wes. There's certainly no easy answers here, but thank you once again for joining us here on BNC, and of course, thank you so much for your service to this country. Take care. And stay with us, everyone. We are continuing to keep you updated on the latest information on the attack at the airport in Kabul, Afghanistan. Stay with us. This is BNC.